Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
Here at the Plant-Based Podcast, we love to cook and prepare food. What better botanical kitchen companion than a colourful calanchoe? With a myriad of colours, you'll have a lot of fun designing with the many colours to pick from. And once you've chosen the plant, you'll also have fun choosing the pot to put it in. We've hooked up with the experts at Always Calanchoe to bring you the first half of Series 5 of the Plant-Based Podcast. You can find out more about these houseplants by following at Always Calanchoe on Instagram. Let us know where you place yours. So on today's podcast episode, we give a great big welcome to Frank Giustra, owner of Modern Farmer magazine, foodie, philanthropist, and one half of the force that started the Million Gardens movement, which we will find out more about soon. But I don't want to delve too much into that yet because I want Frank to tell us all about that himself. But first, before we learn more about it, let's get to know Frank and his love of gardening. And as you know, usually before we start chatting, I will always tell you what I can see on the screen. Michael is here with his happy affirmation in the background in his office. And Frank looks a little bit like he's on a ship because the webcam is moving. And he has a remarkable piece of art behind him, which I'm going to make him tell us about in a moment. So welcome so much to the podcast, Frank.
Thank you. It's great to be on. Thanks for having me on.
So before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about you? And actually, even before then, just about that lovely piece of art behind you that I think your webcam is confusing itself with.
Yeah. So for those, obviously you can't see it, but let me describe it. It's a painting that I'd commissioned, and it's of Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling, who were co-stars in Bladerunner 2049, which I was an executive producer on. A bit of my background, I founded Lionsgate Entertainment 20-something years ago, so I used to be in the film business. But the original Blade Runner, for those of you that are cult Blade Runner followers, became a cult movie. Probably
I love it.
Best sci-fi movie of all time. Came out in 1982, directed by Ridley Scott. I have watched that movie, honestly, between 30 and 40 times in my life. It is a work of art. And so about 12 years ago, the opportunity, by serendipity, I met the original producer of the movie, one of the co-producers. There were two of them. They were getting quite advanced in age, and one of them wanted out. They owned the IP. I acquired half of the IP in 2009 or 10, and we eventually started the process of getting the sequel, which had never been even contemplated in the 40 years since the original. And Ridley Scott came on as an executive producer. Denis Villeneuve came on as director, and obviously starring Ryan Gosling, fellow Canadian. And Harrison Ford came in for a role in that movie. And it was an amazing movie, an incredible work of art on its own. So I had this commission by an artist. It was actually Billy Idol's guitar player, who was performing at a function that I'd put together for a charity event. And he told me he was an artist and he did these sort of things, and I thought it was cool. So you can't see it, but the actual script is embedded in the painting of the original. And so now I had 3 of these made for my other producer and the production company that made it. So that's a quick story on Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling.
I love it. I'd like it in my bedroom very much.
But how does film then, your career in film, how did you then come around to doing the Million Gardens movement? And what is that about?
Boy, that's a long journey. Okay,
Yeah, tell us.
From film. My film interest started in the mid '80s. I started with a much smaller company in the mid '80s while I was running an investment bank at the time. My main business was investment banking for about 20 years, but I had a small company that was based in Los Angeles that we started in 1986, and I dabbled in film production and learned a lot about it. By 1997, I had decided I wanted to really be in the film business. That's when I launched Lionsgate Entertainment, which today I think is the largest independent studio in the world, and has made many great films, including the Hunger Games series and many, many others. Great company, still run by friends of mine. And so that's my involvement in film. How you jump from there to Million Gardens, there were a few pieces in between. About 20-something years ago, I decided that business wasn't enough for me. Making money wasn't enough for me. I decided to start a foundation. And over time, that my interest in the foundation, part of my life grew and grew and grew. By 2007, I made a real fundamental decision to put most of my business activities behind me and focus on all my foundation's work. And we focus on four. We have a philosophy which I'll talk about. But I focus on four main areas. I have several foundations actually doing different things, but everything from poverty alleviation in Latin America and the Caribbean. And a lot of that has to do with farming, so we can talk about that. Refugee resettlement around the world, conflict resolution. I'm a co-chair of the International Crisis Group, which is a Brussels-based organization, the premier organization in preventing deadly conflict around the world. We have analysts all over the world reporting and advocating on conflict situations, wars, what have you. And then there's obviously the food security part of it, food intelligence, which encompasses the Million Gardens movement. Food has been a very big part of my life. And so Million Gardens evolved from my interest in food.
Wow, that is a lot of amazing work and organizations that you are involved in. That must keep you seriously busy.
It does. It's some days, honestly, I love what I do. I sincerely love my philanthropic work. It's my life. It's in every fiber of my body. But there are days where I go, I have no idea why I've taken on so much. I have to drop something, and I complain to everybody around me that I've got way too much on my plate. And then I go through the list of what I could possibly drop, and I go through the list individually, and there's nothing. I can't. It's just all these things are important, and once you are in them, walking away is something I've never done. So I just, I'm very busy, but I love it.
And somehow you just find the time. It happens, I'm sure. All happens.
Yeah, just less sleep. No, less sleep.
Yeah. Who needs sleep?
Yeah.
Isn't there a saying like sleep when you're dead or something like that,
Yeah, there's lots of time for sleep.
Yeah. So I know that we'd love to kind of delve a little bit more into the important work that you do, encouraging people to grow their food and climate change and such like. But before we get to that point, is there a magazine, Modern Farmer? Is this all linked in with what you do, with kind of trying to spread the word about how important it is?
Yeah, so Modern Farmer is a magazine I launched some 8 or 9 years ago. It was really because of my love for food. I'm a foodie, by the way. And because of my love for food, this opportunity was brought to me. And it was really a novel approach to looking at the food movement as it has been evolving over the last 20 or so years, and tapping into that interest in the food movement. So we, covered all topics to do with food, whether it's recipes, health, you name it. And so we ran it as a magazine for many, many years. I'm in the process of changing what the magazine is all about to make it a nonprofit, and for it to be an education platform on all subjects related to food. So I've abandoned the idea of making the magazine a for-profit, although we have a very large readership. My interest now is to focus it on education so that we will cover subjects, again, all related to food, but it can do with health, climate, sustainability, immigration, policy, government policy around food, etc. And so that's the new direction of Modern Farmer as we're going through the process of making that change. And Million Gardens, the Million Gardens concept came from the Modern Farmer readership, because when COVID hit back in 2020 in March and the lockdown took place, we noticed an increased activity in our traffic in our magazine with respect to gardening. And there were a lot of people that were asking about gardening, that people that had never gardened before, had grown their own vegetables. And we recognized that there was a need, and the need was both from a mind health perspective. People wanted something to do during their lockdown. They couldn't go anywhere. So gardening is obviously, as you probably know, being gardeners, is a great way to de-stress yourself, to just heal your soul when you're outdoors, and it's a hobby. It's something that can occupy your time. But there was another aspect to it that I found more interesting, which was that a lot of people were doing it to supplement their food budgets. And we learned some interesting statistics along the way that during COVID, 1 in 4 Americans were suffering from food insecurity, either had to skip a meal or rely on some form of government assistance. 1 in 4 Americans, that's an incredible statistic. And so from that, we came up with the idea of Million Gardens. And what it was modeled after was the Victory Gardens from World War II. I don't know if you recall, but both in the UK and America, during World War II, and I'll talk a bit about the President Roosevelt came up with the idea, or someone in the administration came up with the idea of creating gardens throughout America that people could grow in their own backyards or in public parks to supplement the needs for food, because a lot of it was going overseas, all the meats and canned goods and cheeses, coffee, et cetera, was going overseas to support the soldiers in the war effort. So he inspired about 20 million of these gardens to be grown during the war. I went to visit one recently. The last one that is in its existing location is in Boston, and I was in Boston about a month or so ago. So I went to visit this last Victory Garden, and it's still going today, like 70 years later. And it's, got 425 or something individual gardens. I actually, by accident, ran into the president of the association who was working in a little plot. I was just walking through, taking photos, and I met her. And so I took out my phone and I recorded. I said, "Can I interview you?" And I actually wrote an article on this. You can find it on Modern Farmer on our website. It talks about the last Victory Garden. So we came up with the idea. We did a bit of research. We soft launched it back in March or April of 2020 during the lockdown. And then I was introduced to Kimball Musk. Someone said, you have a lot in common with Kimball. You're both foodies. You love to cook. He has his Big Green movement, which is about educating school children in schools throughout North America on the subject of gardening, making it a part of the curriculum. And I think they rolled out about 700 gardens over the years. So I was introduced to Kimball, and I have to tell you, within the first meeting, we hit it off, and we agreed that this was a really great idea that we had come up with, that he wanted to partner with. So we became partners with Kimball Musk and his Big Green movement. And we've been at it about just a bit over a year now, maybe a year and a half. And it's one very exciting part of my life. It's one of the 4 pillars of what I'm interested in.
That's amazing. And isn't it incredible how things just happen? I truly believe nothing happens as a coincidence. You went to the Victory Garden, you happened to see, the person there, and then, you met your new partner doing Million Gardens. It's like all those things just happen because they're meant to be.
Yeah, no, Ellen, honestly, you just hit on something that I'm a true believer in this. I don't just say this. I have believed this since I was 19 years old, because I have manifested things that I wanted to achieve my entire life. I started out, I was obviously with selfish gains. I wanted to be, successful in business and make money. And I manifested that by reading a book called Think and Grow Rich, which was written back in the 1930s. And it motivated me I wanted to succeed. And I made certain statements to be able to go, I'm going to be successful. And I became very successful very early on in life, in my early 20s. And then it evolved from there. I wanted, it goes right to my olive oil. I make what I consider to be the best olive oil in the world. It's called Botanical Friends. It's made on my estate in Italy. And I knew nothing about olive oil 11 years ago. And I remember when I first launched it, and it was a whim, it was a hobby. It was just, let's do it. I'm going to name it after my mother, Domenica Fiore, and I'm going to make the best olive oil in the world. And I actually went out and told people, I'm going to make the best olive oil in the world. And then eventually, because we then focus on how do you go about making the best olive oil in the world, we created, and it took a lot of expense, best all over the world. We started winning all the awards around the world, and we still do. And I've always manifested these things in my mind, like I want to meet a certain person. And because I think that person will be beneficial to my work, to all my philanthropic work. And it does work. You put it out there in the universe. I know it sounds kind of,
no, it doesn't. I'm with you. That's complete. I practice meditation and manifestation nearly every single day. And, you see it, you believe it, you live it, you breathe it, you take action towards it. And I truly believe you can manifest whatever you set out to manifest.
Yeah, and married up with a positive mental attitude as well. It's a no-brainer.
We're all energy. The universe is there, wants you to live the life that you want to live,
Yeah, no, I'm a firm believer that there's something going on in the universe that we don't understand yet, but someday perhaps we will. But I do believe in the power of good, the power of positive energy. I believe that it does create a positive outcome. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Well, you're definitely giving off positive vibes here, Frank. So that's all good.
So you obviously appreciate and understand the importance of people growing their own food, but kind of in the bigger picture, when that comes to climate change, how do you see people growing their own food as affecting climate change, both in good and bad ways?
Well, I think I can't think of people growing their own food having a negative effect on climate change, unless you've got something I've missed. But from the positive aspect, I mean, our whole food system, as we discovered during COVID, is, messed up. The supply chain kind of fell apart. We saw how, it impacted food security. From the perspective of climate change, obviously, if you eliminate all the transportation, let's say in a perfect world, in a utopian world, that everybody grew their own food in their own backyard, like we used to, a few hundred years ago, you would eliminate all of that transportation, shipping, trucking, all of those things that contribute to climate change. So I think that it is definitely a positive. It's something that if we all manage to grow at least some of our own food, those of us that can, it would go a long way from eliminating, or at least mitigating climate change issues.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually, I always find it quite interesting when you think back over the last however many decades that from the war, like World War II onwards, people were gardening. Like I can even remember my uncle.
Normal practice.
Yeah, it was normal practice, like growing fruit and vegetables in your back garden. And then obviously processed foods came along and all this other stuff. And then urban developments and people didn't have the space. And it's almost like everyone fell out of love with gardening and growing their own food.
You're going to hit on my pet peeve, okay? My pet peeve, no, seriously, because I'm a real, I wouldn't say a health nut, but I grew up with Mediterranean diet. I still adhere to it. I think it is the best and healthiest diet in the world. But my pet peeve is highly processed foods and fast food. I think that's killing America. I think it's killing people everywhere. This whole, it's so unhealthy. And I grew up with an immigrant Italian family that had moved to Canada after World War II. And we had a garden. My entire life, we had a garden that my father was so proud of. And it was a massive, massive garden that grew every vegetable you could possibly imagine. And we ate, my mom, God bless her, she would spend her entire days in the kitchen. Again, she loved it. She didn't want to do anything else. She just wanted to take care of her kids. But she was cooking 3 meals a day, canning, freezing, and we had everything we wanted. And it really went a long way to supplement our food budget. But more importantly, we've never had health issues in my family. We were all very healthy. I'm 64 years old right now. And I know that my diet has contributed to my well-being. And so, although as a kid, I hated working, and my father used to put my brother and I in the garden to weed and pick up rocks. And I have to be honest, I didn't enjoy it as a kid. I wanted to go out and play with my buddies. But it always seemed that we'd go out the next day and more rocks would grow out of the ground. I was almost convinced my father would go out at night and just plant rocks so it'd give us something to do the next day. But as it turned out, I have 3 siblings, and they've continued the tradition of growing their own vegetables that my parents had. Unfortunately, until very recently, my life was such that I traveled all over the world. I had, my business and my philanthropy, and it was not conducive to maintaining a home garden. Now that's changed since the Million Gardens movements, and I could talk about that a bit because I've learned a lot. But now I'm in the garden, but I know that my family loves it, and they love being able to harvest their own beans and tomatoes and squash and cucumbers and eating fresh vegetables in the summer. So it was a very big part of my life growing up. It did influence me in many, many ways about health and cooking. I took up cooking when I was in my early 20s. I love cooking, and it's the center of my universe. It's a great way for me to spend a full day on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I love cooking for large groups of people. I love cooking for 10, 20, 30 people. And I'll make 4 or 5 dishes. And the kitchen is my place where I lose myself and I relax, and I want to be alone and put on the music and just spend the entire day cooking. It's what I love. So all of those things came from my upbringing. But the whole gardening thing really did influence me once I got into it after Million Gardens. Now I've got my own garden in my own backyard. I actually have 3 sections to my gardens on my property growing different things.
Right. You're hooked, basically, because that's what happens. As soon as you start gardening, you can't stop gardening. And you were saying about, all of the fresh food, like your mum would do that in the kitchen, and you love being in the kitchen and cooking as well. And it goes hand in hand, doesn't it? When you grow your own food, it tastes amazing, obviously, so much better than what you can buy in the supermarket anyway. But you've grown it, you've nurtured it, you've been responsible for it, you've felt the satisfaction from doing it and all the physical and mental health well-being benefits of being out there gardening. But then to bring that into the kitchen and make your own food with it, it's like the whole cycle, isn't it? Like learning where your food comes from, what it's all about.
And it does make it taste better. It really, growing your own food, maybe part of it's psychological, I don't know. But certainly when you harvest from your own garden, as I did this past summer, at the end of summer, and you're making something, I love to grow Romano beans. And I love my Romano beans with just a touch of olive oil, a little bit of salt, just steamed. And they're just fantastic. And I think part of it is that it just came from your own garden and you feel good about it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if that's a placebo effect and you think it tastes better because you've grown it. But I don't think it is. I think it genuinely does. I just want to ask you a question about very quickly before we move on about land use in America, because in the UK, so I'm based in America half of the year, UK the rest of the year. And in the UK, we have allotment plots. So if you perhaps don't have a garden or you live in a city, it's like an area of land that's split up into what we call plots, and you lease it from the local council. It might only be like, I don't know, $50 a year or something, and you can grow your own food on it, and it has to be cultivated. That's part of your lease, and we need many more of them in the UK, but as it stands, there's more than there are in some other countries. I haven't seen that at all in the US. I've seen community gardens, but
I think that's the closest thing that I've seen. Is obviously we have community gardens in many places, but I am not familiar with the plots in the UK. But I know that even my brother and his wife because they live in a condominium, have a plot in a local community garden where they grow vegetables, and so they have to maintain them, and again they love it, and but I don't know. I'm not familiar with the UK version of this.
Yeah, I'm always interested because I'm in North Carolina and there's a lot of land, and I always think, the cities like in Charlotte where I am, it's being built up so fast, and then there's so many apartments, and then there's not so much access to gardens at all. And I always think, but what about all of this land? Like, it can literally just be divided up. You rent it from whoever owns it, and you have your space in order to grow your own vegetables. And I always America is massive. There's a huge opportunity to be able to give access to land.
I recall hearing about one of these, someone that did that with a private parcel of land in British Columbia, but that was just a one-off. And what he did was he had a large plot of land that was farmable, and he basically divided it up and allowed the community to come in and grow their own gardens. But I don't think it's something you see in many parts of America. But that's a great idea.
Yeah. That might have to be my next manifestation. I'm going to send you, Frank, a drone shot of my allotment plot so you can see what I mean. But anyway, going back to the food you were talking about, tell us what you love to cook. So if you've just harvested something from the garden, what kind of things do you love cooking?
Oh, I have my signature recipes. So as I said, I started cooking in my early 20s. And I even wanted to launch my own kitchen show called Frank's Kitchen. And I started doing recordings which I posted on Instagram just for fun, just to test it, where I'm trying new recipes. I'm always trying new recipes. But then I do have my signature dishes, which I've tried to perfect over the years. So if you ask me what do I love to cook, what do I, because every chef loves accolades. So, if you invite 10, 20, 30 people and you serve them something you've cooked all day, you want people to say, oh, God, that's amazing. Or that dish, single out his particular dish and say, that was really good. And I always make a mental note of that. I go, okay, that's a popular dish. I have to do that again with another group. But I love, so my favorite dish is eggplant parmesan, which was my mother's recipe, which is taking me 30 years to tweak and change and perfect to where I now create. It's almost like a souffle. I don't know if you've ever had eggplant parmesan in a restaurant, but it usually comes like you see this kind of gooey, cheesy, mixed thing that you can't even tell where the layers of eggplant are. Mine looks like a stack of a souffle, and it's fork tender. And it's taking me years to make it that good. And so that's what I would call one of my signature dishes. A friend of mine about 12 years ago for my birthday gave me a pizza oven that came from Naples. And so I put that in my back deck, and I love making pizzas, because once you learn how to make a proper pizza in a wood-fired pizza oven, there is nothing that tastes the same. So I love my pizza. I love making lots of different pastas, because again, with pastas, you can almost do anything with them. As long as you have the pasta and you add something to it. And I love, again, I have all my favorite recipes, my mother's meatballs, which, I learned to make. And then I've dabbled in other areas too, but, I'm always trying new things. I went vegan for about 6 months, about 2 years ago, just as an experiment. I'd watched that documentary Game Changers.
Yeah.
And I watched it during the month of December. So I decided on January 1st I would be a vegan. So all of a sudden people started sending me vegan cookbooks. And I learned, and I thought that my diet would be really restricted because, I'd only be able to eat grilled vegetables. And that's simply not the case. There's some amazing cookbooks. There's one called Oh She Glows, which is my favorite vegan cookbook. So if you can get that book, it has amazing recipes. And so I did it for 6 months just to see how my body would change. And I did notice that I did not lose energy levels because I work out every day. I train every day doing something. And so my energy levels were not impacted. And I lost a little bit of weight. I did notice it on my face that, going vegan did make you lose some weight. But otherwise, I felt great. Mind you, it became inconvenient because then you're invited to people's homes, you go to certain restaurants, and you say, by the way, I'm vegan, and they just panic because they don't know what to give you. Again, you always get a side of grilled vegetables.
I know, Frank, I'm vegan, so I appreciate all of these situations. It's usually when you go to someone else's house, and I can remember when I was vegetarian for quite a lot of years. Then I decided to be completely plant-based, and I said to my very best friend, and she said, well, what am I going to be able to cook for you now? And I just said, oh, you'll figure it out.
It's not about her, it's about you though, isn't it? At the end of the day. Yeah.
And it was fine. Like, I think things have changed quite a lot, even from when I was vegetarian years ago. There's an option in every restaurant. And to me, like, I grow so much of my own food anyway, so much of my own, fruit and vegetables. And I take it home. There's just so much of it. I don't need to add anything else to it because, like, there's enough there for me to eat.
Yeah, so I went through the vegan diet, and then I decided after the experiment, because of the inconvenience part of it, it was more about that than the actual diet itself, that I would just go back to my Mediterranean diet, which is essentially a vegetable diet with fish. The only non-vegetable thing is fish in the Mediterranean diet. And that works for me, but I love vegetables. I love fresh vegetables. And the best way to cook fresh vegetables is just steam them with a little bit of olive oil and just a little bit of salt. You don't have to complicate vegetables. If you grow them fresh, especially if you grow them fresh, just keep them simple with just a touch of olive oil. And that's, to me, that's a meal. I love just having, some romano beans or some broccolini, some tomatoes and cucumber with a little bit of oregano on top of some salt and olive oil. And that to me is a meal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a big fan of roasting vegetables. And you've actually seen me eating a whole tray of roasted beetroot while we've been filming and recording this podcast.
Yeah, we can see
that's
the
to
red.
Explain.
Your fingers are now red from holding.
Yeah, but it's worth it. Wow, it's really interesting to learn more about kind of your cookery habits, kind of your passion for cookery and growing your own. But in part 2, we're really going to dig into this Million Gardens movement and make it clear what it's all about, how it started, and where it could take all of us as well. So thank you very much for that, Frank. Stick around and we'll be back in part 2.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's August from August Garden on Instagram, where I share all my tips and colourful inspiration on growing your own food and flowers. I am also the founder of the Seed Explorers, which is a box of growing magic for kids. It's full of seeds, full of activities and fun things to do as a family to try and inspire the next generation to fall in love with growing their own food, just like I have. I'm also the garden tutor at the Raymond Blanc Gardening School, and I'm also a kitchen gardener at the 2 Michelin-star hotel and restaurant in Oxfordshire, Belmond Le Manoir.
As autumn sweeps through the country and all those beautiful colours start changing in the garden to that burnt orange and brown, and the leaves begin to fall, the garden starts clearing. All those summer vegetables are now making way for that autumn veg to be planted. And I can honestly say this is one of my favourite times. I do say that about absolutely everything, but I really do love November. It's the time when I start sowing my broad beans, and I find on the seed packets, yes, you can start them off in October. But for me, if I start them in October, they grow to about 2 foot. And over the winter months, they take a real bashing. So all that wind blows them all around, all the snow falls and they generally break. So I find that sowing my broad beans in about the 2nd week of November seems to be my best time for the best harvest. And the reason for that is, say if you're sowing them in November, they take a good 2 to 3 weeks to germinate. So I always end up panicking, and then I have to tell myself, no, they take that little bit longer in the winter because of that warmth and because of the light. And then they'll suddenly break through the soil. But for the whole of winter, because of that daylight hours is quite low, they won't get very big. So they'll probably stay about 10 to 15 centimetres throughout the whole of the winter. And then that's stopping them from getting too much weather damage. And then come spring, they will just erupt into these fabulous plants. And for me, broad beans, I don't just love them for broad beans. I love every part of that plant, and it all has a great benefit for the garden and for your dinner plates. So I like to start picking, once the plant starts getting really invigorated, I pick those baby broad bean leaves, and they really add another dimension to your salads. And the leaves have got that broad beany kind of flavour. Another thing I love about the broad beans are the flowers. They are absolutely beautiful, and again, super delicious. They add that little bit of colour. The broad beans that I sow in autumn are called Aquadulce Claudia, and they have a white flower. But you can also sow some broad beans that are called Crimson Flower, and they have a beautiful pinky red flower. And another variety I love to sow at the beginning of next year, because they're not particularly hardy, are the Karmassian, and they are a pink broad beans. So when you open up those pods, they are pink inside, which my kids, when they harvest them, it's like, who's going to get the pink ones? It's like this race to see who's going to get the green and who's going to get the pink. So I think it just adds another little dimension of fun into growing beans. So as I said, the leaves are great in salads. I also pick off some of the leaves, and I can add them to stir fries as well, kind of like spinach. And then when the pods start growing, you can eat the pods when they're quite small. I wouldn't eat them particularly if they're bigger. You can, but to me, they get a bit tough. And also, another fantastic thing about broad beans is those roots are producing fantastic nutrients for your next crop. So when you harvest your beans, just cut them off just above the soil, leave those roots in, and those roots will have some fabulous nitrogen to feed your next crop. So to me, the broad bean is an absolute all-round necessity and total winner for the vegetable patch. So if I were you, I would get yourself to your local garden centre or order some Aquadulce Claudia seeds online and get sowing some broad beans this November. Again, I would like to say thank you so much to the Plant-Based Podcast for having me. There is nothing I love more than chatting about veg, and I'll look forward to chatting to you all again in December about some Christmassy kind of things that we can start getting excited about. But for now, I'll leave you hunting down some broad bean seeds and enjoying those autumn months in the garden. Thanks very much. And if you want to chat further, head across to my Instagram, August Garden, and we can talk until your hearts are content about gardening, flowers and growing. Thanks very much for listening, and speak to you soon.
Okay, so we're back here in part 2. We're talking to Frank Giustra about the Million Gardens movement. So, Frank, tell us what it's all about, because you've already talked at length about your garden, your own cookery, your passion for it, and that's just one garden of a million. But you're looking to inspire 1 million people to grow things in their gardens, aren't you? Tell us all about the project, please.
Okay, so I think I mentioned earlier that it came about during COVID when the lockdown happened, and we started to see in my Modern Farmer magazine a lot of traffic related to gardening, and we quickly figured out that a lot of people were novices, had not tried gardening before, and we were getting a lot of queries about gardening. And so we came up, our folks at Modern Farmer came up with the idea, and it was modeled after the World War II victory gardens in both Britain and America, which were used to supplement food budgets during the war years. And so we thought, let's launch something very similar, but with a slightly different purpose than just the supplementing the food budget, because the gardening is also healthy for the mind and for the soul. And so, especially during lockdown, people were looking for something to do, a way to pass their time, something that would keep their sanity intact. And gardening became very, very popular. And then, so there was that aspect. There was obviously the food budgetary aspect, and I spoke about the fact that 1 in 4 Americans suffered some form of food insecurity during COVID, during the lockdown. And then to me, especially for me, it's the health aspect. I think, and again, I said earlier, my pet peeves about the American diet, fast foods and highly processed foods, which are very, very bad for you, and in my opinion, are a big cause of all the cancers that exist in all the other illnesses, diabetes, etc. So we launched it, and just to gather information, we did a very soft launch back in March 2020. Then a few months later, I was introduced to Kimball Musk. Kimball Musk, who I've gotten to know quite well now, is a foodie, just like myself. He's a trained chef, unlike myself. I call myself a passionate hack, but he is actually a trained chef, and he has his own restaurants. And he is also philanthropic, and he started the Big Green Movement, which was to put gardening of vegetables and fruits into school curriculums, which he did throughout about 700 schools throughout North America, throughout the U.S. So it was already, my Million Gardens idea was already somewhat compatible to what he was already doing. So we decided to join forces, and we created the Million Gardens movement. We launched it on Plant a Seed Day last March. And we're in the process of trying to get 1 million new gardens, at least 1 million new gardens grown in North America. And then we plan to go global with this also. But I think our initial focus is the US and Canada. And I think that's very doable. I mentioned earlier about the Victory Garden that I visited in Boston. And during World War II, President Roosevelt inspired the creation of 20 million home gardens and community gardens to supplement America's food budget during the war years. So I thought to myself, well, if he can inspire 20 million, certainly we can get 1 million off the ground. And that's our initial objective. So we launched it, and we are encouraging people to join the movement, to have a connection established with food that I think we've lost in the last couple of generations. We have lost our connection to food. My parents, I know, grew up with the concept of growing their own food. That's gone mostly in today's world. So I think that we want to reestablish that connection to food. So we're creating this community, and the community is going to interact. It's going to inspire others to join, especially people that have never gardened before. We have a specific focus on low-income communities throughout North America, where it would be very beneficial to educate people in low-income communities to grow their own food, because many of them live in food deserts. There's, I think, about 23 or 24 million people in America that live in what's called a food desert, where they have very little or no access to fresh fruits and vegetables in their community. And no wonder they're hooked on fast food and highly processed foods. So if we could just address that alone, and that's obviously not just a part of our approach, but if we just get these low-income communities to grow their own food, I think that would be a tremendous achievement.
I agree with you. And I'll tell you something I think was really interesting about what you were just saying, making people get that connection between like their food and their health kind of thing. When you grow your own food, obviously you want to eat it. But first of all, it's encouraging people to actually want to grow their own food. And that's quite difficult, because you have to have the land, you have to have the knowledge, and you have to kind of not be scared about it, because lots of people they don't really know where to start. But when there are advertisements absolutely everywhere for fast food that's like $1 for a bucket of,
you need the antidote,
and there's so much poverty across the whole world, but we're talking about here in the US, and you've got a whole family to feed. You are going to go and you are going to get that fast food that's only $1, because that's how you can feed your family. So the whole social system of food awareness, food growing, access to land. It's so messed up. It blows my mind. And then you have these adverts everywhere that are like, yeah, Tuesday is, I daren't say the word, I was going to say like a fast food chain then, which I'm really not going to, but like Tuesday is, bucket of this Tuesday, feed your whole family, like a family of five, for like $5,
badly.
And it's like, oh gosh.
Yeah, see, our whole food system evolved from the Depression era and World War II, where the government objective was to produce food and calories in mass production to feed the nation. So that was a worthy objective for those days, during the Depression and obviously in World War II. So, but post World War II, we've now gotten into this whole culture of fast food, convenience, and I think that is a cultural problem. I'm not sure how to fix it entirely, but I think what we're doing is a great start, trying to educate people about something they know very little about, because in a lot of these communities, the kids in school wouldn't be able to identify a carrot or a tomato if they saw it. If someone showed them a picture of a tomato, because they never see it. And so I think that's, and again, there's a lot of obvious policy issues, government policy issues with respect to food that could be addressed. But you mentioned something just now about people being intimidated by growing their own food or needing land to grow their own food. Well, what we're trying to advocate here is that you don't. First of all, it's easier than you think. It looks intimidating, but we're distributing these little green gardens, which are 12 by 12 kits and I'll talk about how you can help get that out there, to how your audience can help out and donate and get them these kits to low-income communities. But you can grow those on your windowsill. You can grow those on your fire escape, on your back deck, or your back garden. Mm-hmm. You don't need a lot of land to grow certain vegetables. And so it's that is a fallacy. I think we want to address that in our education of the public. And it's not, having done it myself now, and I had some help because, again, I'm traveling a lot. But this last growing season on my own property, I had to learn a few things. Mind you, I took it to a step higher. I went into urban permaculture methods, which is a whole different subject. But learning just the basics of gardening, planting seeds and how to nurture them until the fruit or vegetables are ready to harvest is not as difficult as it sounds. And certainly our kits come with the QRs, codes, and everything. And we have a great network, a resource where if you started your own garden, you could get the answers to your questions by being part of the Million Gardens movement. And so all I want to say is that it's easier than you think, and you can do it on your fire escape or back deck if you needed to.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you're encouraging people to get into gardening, helping to educate them in order to be able to do that. And it isn't just about if you've got an outdoor space, you're also able to garden if you have a small space, a balcony, or even just a windowsill.
Yeah, exactly. And again, they're called Little Green Garden Kits. You can go to milliongardensmovement.org. That's our website. And you'll see it's described on there. And you can actually donate to that website. Press the donate, click the donate button. And you can actually help us to get those Little Green Garden Kits to low-income communities. $15 will buy a kit for a family that will give 3 seasonal vegetables throughout the year for a family. So $15, you can donate 15, or you can donate 15 million if you like. We'll take any amount, but $15 is sort of the minimum, and that provides one kit to one family. And in that kit, so they can grow, again, depending on the season, squash, potatoes, lettuce, basil, cherry tomatoes, strawberries.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can make your own pasta sauce.
You can make your own pasta sauce, exactly.
Yeah. So tons of
fresh tomato pasta sauce, which is one of my favorites, with just a little bit of garlic and basil. Perfect.
There we go.
So tons of information on the website, on social media. We'll give that information out at the end just to make that clear for everyone. But of course, something that caught our eye, and I think that's how we noticed the project initially, is that you've enlisted a number of A-list celebrities to help support the charity. And of course, these days in the world of influencers, and obviously for many years, Hollywood movie stars have been, people pay attention to what they say, whether we find that crazy or kind of sane. That is the way to get into people's minds, isn't it? So how have you used celebrities to get across the message of the Million Garden movement here?
So when we launched with Kimball Musk last summer, we engaged with Harrison Ford, Salma Hayek, Zoe Deschanel, and Aleo Black, and some others too. But keep in mind, this was during the lockdown, where it was virtually impossible to get people out of their homes to go to a studio with a famous photographer that we work with to have their portrait taken with vegetables and all the things that we created. So we created this great campaign during lockdown. And all I can say to you is that there are many more celebrities that would be more than happy as this campaign continues, because we're just getting started. So I know once the campaign will be ongoing, we'll obviously have moments in time where we have other celebrities with these creating these posters or sending messages out on social media, which was very, very helpful. Because there are a lot of people, including celebrities, that love to garden, that understand the benefits of healthy, fresh foods. And so it's not hard to find people that are of the same mindset as we are. And so I think we're going to be fortunate, because we do, both Kimball and I have access to celebrities. And that, as you say, it's a crazy world out there, but it works. A celebrity says, do something, it gets people's attention. And then they look a little closer and they learn about it.
If it works, it works. And if it gets people into gardening and growing their own food, brilliant. And something that before we finish up for the podcast today, I just want to mention how on a couple of occasions you have kind of noted just how much people have been enjoying gardening and just the natural world in general during COVID. And whilst obviously the pandemic has not been great for anyone, it's not been enjoyable in any way, I do thoroughly believe that when you take out all of the noise, all of those other stresses, the busyness of life, the pressures, the expectations, you come back to your natural being, which is nature. We are nature. Everything around us is a natural world. And I think people needed to be outside, yes, for their own sanity, but they kind of rediscovered that connection again. And I know some people who had sown a carrot for the first time ever and then would harvest it and post it on Facebook. Yay, first carrot. And I'm literally like, I've been going on about this for like 40 years.
Same. It's funny you mention that, because my joy. See, I love tomatoes because, again, tomatoes are very much used in Italian food. And I've always had, this other peeve about non-Italian tomatoes, because I go to Italy a lot and I eat the Italian tomatoes and I go, they taste better than North American tomatoes. And there are reasons for that, because of the way we grow food and ship it, and it's not ripe and it's modified to create a certain aesthetic appeal instead of the quality of the fruit itself. But it was tomatoes. So I grew a whole series of tomatoes in my garden this summer, different varietals of tomatoes in my garden. And to watch the plant grow, and then this flower, and then the tomato, the green, and then it ripens, and then to pick it off the plant and just walk straight to your kitchen and eat it. Again, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of salt. It's just, I think that it's a magical process to see food grow that you can eat. It really is. It gives you such satisfaction. And I think if people try it, this whole gardening thing, you'll get hooked. You'll absolutely get hooked.
I completely agree. So in the UK, we're green fingers, and in the US, we're green thumbs. So we're all green hands is what I would say. So I love what you're doing. It sounds absolutely amazing. I'm definitely going to chip in and support, that's for sure. But can you tell all of our listeners how they can reach out to you, where they can find you on social media, your website address, that kind of thing?
Well, it's Frank Giustra. That's Giustra. I'm both on Twitter and Instagram. And I I'm always messaging about food at some point or other, when I'm cooking or gardening. But the website, you either go to Modern Farmer, which is my magazine, or go to milliongardensmovement.org. And I really encourage you to go there, join the movement, just become part of the community. And that's all we really needed to start. It's just to get the word out there, make the community bigger, more robust. And then we'll take it from there. We have lots of other things coming up. We're encouraging corporate partnerships to help really get these kits out in more and more communities. So, we're talking to garden centers and home improvement centers to see if they'll partner with us. We're looking for champions in cities. Personally, I'm championing Vancouver because that's where I grew up, but I'm also going to be rolling out in other places. But we're looking for, if you're, say, in Wichita or, I don't know, Palm Beach, wherever you are, Dallas, if you want to be the champion for the Million Gardens movement in that city, you have the ability to organize community groups and just please contact us at partners@milliongardensmovement.org. We're looking for partners. But that's the only way we're going to be able to get it out efficiently in a shorter period of time.
Yeah, so it's building up the community, educating people and getting the kits out. And I think it will become something really amazing. And I'm absolutely sure that you can encourage 1 million new gardens. I'm 100% sure, if for no other reason, if Frank hasn't persuaded you, go on the website and Harrison Ford will. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for spending time with us. It's been really interesting. It's such a positive, uplifting episode, that's for sure. Everyone, go check out Million Gardens Movement on Instagram, socials as well, and get involved. Let's get more people gardening. It's important for people and for the planet. So thank you so much, Frank, for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm a 1 minute gardener, Teddy, and that's my best buddy daughter, a 5 minute gardener. Hi everyone, I'm Teddy, a 1 minute gardener, and this is Star.
And what do you want to talk about today, Teddy? Are you going to tell people about apples? Because there's some people out there who spray chemicals on their apples to stop the bugs coming to the apples. But what do you think about bugs coming on your apples?
It's good.
Yeah? What happens?
If we put chemicals on our apples, a bug won't come.
Yeah? And what happens when the bugs do come if you don't put chemicals on it like we do?
They will make a little nibble.
Yeah? And do they say anything when they nibble the apple?
No.
Do they say...
Hello.
What else do they say?
Hi everyone, how are you?
That's not what the bug says when he goes on the apple. He says, does he say, hey Teddy? Hey Teddy, this apple's tasty.
Green, red inside and a bit green inside.
Your apples are a bit red inside?
Yeah, and a bit green.
And a bit green? Is it green or is it kind of white? Yeah.
That's green.
There's a green button there, yeah.
What does that green button do?
That just says we're recording.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. It's just a quick one this week. But if you have any questions, you can find us on Instagram as the 5 Minute Gardener.
That
Bye.
wasn't the same.
Thank you all for joining us on the podcast today. Series 5 is supported by the team at Always Kalanchoe. They're the experts when it comes to this super cool, colourful houseplant. Why not visit kalanchoe.nl or follow Always Kalanchoe on Instagram to find out more. I just had a notification that the recording's in progress. It offered that I could leave. I nearly did.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't, because I thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you for these gossip.
Square.
However, I did say to you earlier on that it will not be the first plant-based podcast gossip where you have been laying down on a bed.
I have not laid down for a while, to be honest, because I have a well set up office at home now. I would often be upright, surrounded by plants. It just so happens that now I'm horizontal and surrounded by silk pajamas.
Ooh, get you. Do you have silk pillowcases as well?
No, I'm in a Holiday Inn.
Oh, okay, definitely not.
How are you in the closet there, dear?
I'm fine. I'm still in the closet as usual, and I'm also full of cold, but I've just been sniffing eucalyptus, and it's amazing, isn't it? It's better than anything else to clear your nose, just sitting sniffing eucalyptus. So yeah, all is well here. It's got colder. Oh my gosh. I know it's colder in the UK. Before everybody shouts at me and goes, oh my God, it's still sunny there. When you've been in the warmth for a while and it just suddenly, boom, gets cold, it's like such a shock to your system. I went out today, I was like, whoa, I'm definitely not appropriately dressed. It was cold.
But you know what? I like that you've assumed that because it's cold in the UK, it's not sunny. But actually, it's been really cold, but very sunny almost last week, which is
that's nice.
Such a lovely. It always, in a weird way, to me, it always feels like New Zealand weather when it's like that. Because I was in New Zealand once, and it was like that for a day. So you can see my logic. I don't know. Because it's just a crisp cold with a clear sky is just really,
It's the nicest thing. It's a lovely feeling, actually. You know, just that blue sky, the crisp air on your face. It's beautiful. I love this time of year.
Hey, guess what I'm doing tomorrow?
What are you doing tomorrow?
Have a guess. I'll give you 3 guesses.
Well, you're staying in a Holiday Inn, so I would suggest that means that you're probably somewhere filming. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I reckon, to be honest, I already know because I think I saw a poster that you're going to be recording for Steph's Packed Lunch.
Yeah.
Can you stop picking your nose, please?
You can guess it all in one, Ellen.
But you said I have 3 guesses. I like to use up the time. And I think you will be recording somewhere extra special and potentially poisonous.
Oh, God, no. That's not what I'm doing. I told you about that, but that's Friday. That's not tomorrow.
What are you doing tomorrow, then?
Sorry.
What are you doing
I feel like I stitched you up. I'm doing, what's the word? Review? No, not review. What is it?
Right.
Oh, I don't know. When you do, a consumer report on umbrellas.
What?
Well, not like consumer report, but like a review on a show. We're doing a review on umbrellas from the Good Housekeeping Guide. And
You're reviewing umbrellas?
Yeah, I'm going to be presenting them. And we're also going to have a wind machine and a hose. It's going to be great, Ellen.
Oh, that's what I really would like to see.
We're going to have a wind machine, a hose, and Denise Van Outen.
Oh, no.
Got all the props.
That's all you need in life. So what I'd like to know is, will the hose be pointing in your direction or Denise Van Outen's direction?
Well, it depends because we'll all be taking it in turns. Well, to be fair, the hose will never be pointing at me because I'm presenting it. So I'm doing the review of the umbrella, and then each of the participants, which includes Steph as well, will be taking the umbrella in front of the wind machine. Someone will be throwing handfuls of leaves, and I'll be in charge of the hose. And then we kind of each time we rotate, and then the next person then puts the hose and the wind on the other person.
Michael, do not ruin their makeup. Aim for the umbrella and not their faces.
I know, it's going to be really fun. We did raincoats a couple of weeks ago, and we had to splash each other, and it was but it's just nice to do something like that in a way that is what do you call it? In an innovative way to show a product that's quite everyday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also that's perfect time.
Seen it done in an unusual manner.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, we would expect unusuality from you, Michael, so I think it suits you perfectly.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I do like to think outside the box, as it were.
I would like to know some more unusual facts about you, actually. I've got some questions to ask.
Oh, is this our quick fire? Oh, I'm well excited about this. Are you going to do it as well, though?
Yeah, we'll each do it, yeah?
Oh, quick sticks. Quick.
Actually, so we're going to do rapid fire questions, and we have not actually really organised this pre-recording. Shall we ask each other all of the questions, or should we alternate between the questions?
Oh, I don't know.
We should alternate. That would
alternate. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, alternate.
Cool.
Are you ready?
I need to get the screen up so I won't see your face for a little bit.
No problem.
So I won't be able to see your reactions.
So this is the rapid fire quick question round. I'm going to go with Michael and we're going to alternate. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Michael, what's your favourite season?
Summer. Oh, what's your favourite colour, Ellen?
Green. What's your favourite food?
Today, paella. Who is your hero?
Oh, Elizabeth Lawrence from Winghaven. What is your go-to lazy dinner?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Paella.
Oh.
What? No. Oh, I'll tell you what. It's a thing called aligot, which is basically mashed potato with mustard, cheese, and garlic all mashed in. And when they make it in French villages, there's always a man that stirs it for 16 hours. Right. What is your favourite thing to do in the autumn?
Kick the leaves.
Ugh.
Is your bed made right now?
Yes, it's a Holiday Inn. It's not a hovel. If you could afford any car, which one would you drive?
Oh. I don't know anything about cars. The
you
most
better say electric or you get hate mail.
I mean, I don't know. A Bentley? Is that good?
I'm supposed to say something electric, Ellen. A Bentley?
I'll get hate mail for that. If you could be transformed into one animal, which would you choose?
What, me? Oh. God, I don't know.
This is meant to be rapid fire, the one that comes into your mind first.
Oh, I don't know, squirrel.
A squirrel?
Don't question me. Have you ever gone viral online or
I have.
A virus?
I have. When the Beast from the East came, I got an amazing video. It was like being on the moon, and that went viral.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
What?
Oh, no.
What dish do you cook best?
Paella. No, I do. Honestly, I do that very nicely, and I have the soccer at the bottom, which is the crispy base.
Right.
How do you answer the telephone? I don't know why my eyes went blurry. I thought it said tampon. How do you answer the telephone?
I would just say, hang on. Hello?
What? Okay, you'll go.
Would you have a night out or a night in?
Out, but only on my terms. Would you rather travel to the past or the future?
Oh, I would definitely travel to the future and see how badly we've messed up the world. Or if we've had all the solutions and we can implement them right away. And they probably involve not driving a Bentley.
Yeah, nice for you to be a bit more positive about it, please. I think, Ellen, we should go back through and we alternate the other way. So, Ellen, what is your favourite season?
Spring. What is your favourite colour?
Blue. What's your favourite food?
Pizza. Who is your hero?
Oh. Myself.
Oh my God.
What is your go-to lazy dinner?
Pizza.
Or hummus.
What is your favourite thing to do in autumn?
Put leaves in a glycerin bath. Is your bed made right now?
Absolutely not.
Oh my God.
If you could afford any car, which one would you drive?
Oh, I like BMW X6.
Okay, I don't even know what that is. But
if you could be transformed into one animal, which one would you choose other than the animal you already are?
What am I? A beast. I would like to be a bird.
What sort of bird?
I would like to be a bird that lives the longest.
Like a dodo.
Have you ever gone viral online?
I don't know, actually. I don't know, maybe with something to do with nipples. What dish do you cook best?
I'm pretty good at making Asian food. So
yeah, like stir fry.
Like stir fry, yeah, like ramen. I had lovely ramen last night.
Did you make it?
Yes, I made it from scratch.
Oh, you'll have to tell me about that in a minute. You'll go.
Oh, how do you answer the telephone?
I preferably don't. And I certainly, oh my God, we have to get onto this in a bit. But when you message someone and they give you a voice note back, go on. No. Night out or a night in?
Both. Out with the girls.
Out? Really? I can't believe you chose out.
Out with the girls.
Oh.
Would you rather travel to the past or to the future?
I guess the future, but to be honest, we've seen it in all the films already. Oh, cool. Oh, that was really enjoyable, Ellen Mary. Thank you.
I just like to confirm those questions are all just random questions from the internet. From Tinternet.
It doesn't matter if they're not. What are you on about?
I was just saying. I was simply saying that they were random questions. So if you wanted to do them, you can just go online and find, hit the random button, and they give you a list of random questions.
You're the random button.
I actually think you're more random than me, to be fair.
Oh, right. That's excellent, Ellen. Well done. Tell me more about you in terms of your week. Have you finished your book yet, or what?
Oh, shush.
What? No, I'm asking you genuinely as a friend.
No, I'm about 3/4 of the way there.
Oh, well, that's all right, isn't it?
It's all right. It's taken me longer than I had anticipated.
No, that's the way. As long as you're not missing any deadlines.
I have missed 2.
What? I'll have to tell your mum.
I missed 2, but my publishers are amazing, and so we agreed a later deadline for the last batch, which is great.
I think it's normal to not miss deadlines, but for them to have a bit of wiggle room, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And also, It's really difficult. I think we've said on the podcast before that some days I have the whole day free and it's in my diary and I'm going to write that day.
Yeah.
And then you get to the day and it's I've got nothing. I can't write. My brain isn't there, or something else is going on and you can't concentrate. And then you lose that whole day, you know? And I always end up in a mad rush towards the actual deadline, fitting tons of it in at the last minute. But it's going fine. It will all be finished very soon. What about you?
Well, I totally need to be in the right headspace. And I don't think with the type of thing that I'm writing, I don't think cramming it at the end would really work, because it's quite a creative sort of style, as it were. So I feel then even more paranoid about it. And sometimes, similarly, you're just not in the right headspace to kind of get it out. And but other times it would just all fall out, almost like vomit, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's not the most pleasant way of putting it, but sure.
Yeah, so Ellen, probably there was the first frost, I think, in England yesterday or last week.
Oh my God, have you harvested my chickpeas?
What? They got to be before or after?
I think you might have had to harvest them by now.
You didn't remind me.
But I had to remind you, again.
Oh, I don't know. I can actually feel that you're disappointed. I'm
highly disappointed. Don't forget, there's quinoa in a bag in my house for you.
Oh, isn't there always? When I'm going to write on my calendar when Norwich chickpeas. I'm efficient. But they need a frost on them to get better flavour, don't they?
What, chickpeas? I don't think
Or not?
chickpeas would, like where they would grow, you know.
Well, I don't know. Check if there has been a frost in Norwich, because I'm not sure.
Actually, there might not have been a frost in Norwich, but also I don't think chickpeas need a frost. Because
they're not like
in their
parsnip.
native habitat, they would never get a frost, would they?
Ah, okay. But I don't think I've had a frost because my front garden with all the mess in has not been frosted. So, yeah. Do you know, I'm feeling so under pressure with my front garden. You know, like it's become like a little, well, obviously weeds are a matter of opinion, so I won't say weedy. It's just become a little bit wild, and I've loved that effect through the summer. And now that it's kind of, you've got like the big old cow parsley that's kind of going all structural and kind of lovely, and I think it's great. But like when my parents come around, they kind of like, it's a bit wild out there. It's a bit like, what's the word? You should be ashamed of it or something. And then also the other day, my partner was then like, he's like then agreeing with them, and I'm like, oh. Lab. And it's like I'm being really judged for my front garden. But then the other day, what did they say? Which I thought was a really good line, actually. I did some film with Paddy and Scott's coffee brand in my house, and they came in and I said something about the front garden. Like I wasn't doing that English kind of, submissive kind of, sorry about the garden. But like I said some sort of thing, and then they were like, oh, well, if it does look a bit wild and unkempt, then that kind of like keeps you... what's the word? Keeps me protected, like from, people knowing where I live or stalkers and stuff, because they won't expect that it's such a rubbish garden in front of Mr. Plunkey's house.
I mean, the problem is you've told everyone already about it, like literally everyone.
But isn't it weird, Ellen? I know we've talked about this, 108 times, but the concept of a weed. Like, just because it's somewhere, somehow been seen as a weed, why does that make a plant look so different? Because my front garden is actually dense with plants of all different kinds. But because some of those are perceived as a weed, it looks messy. But if those ones that are perceived as a weed weren't there, it would look bumptious and buxom.
Yeah,
it's weird, isn't it? It does my head in.
It's weird because, like, at the end of the day, most weeds have only been categorized as such because they are, say, have an invasive like habit. But
there's things that are invasive, like Verbena bonariensis.
Yeah, weeds in the UK aren't the same as weeds in another country,
Well, yeah, as well.
Like, we all get so excited to grow, like, the mimosa in the UK, as a houseplant, but in other countries that's invasive.
Yeah.
Like agapanthus, we all love growing agapanthus, but you go to some states in Australia and they're like, oh my God, keep me away from the agapanthus. It grows like a weed here, so like, really, it is the classic saying that it is just a plant growing in the place you want it. But we also think weeds are really bad, like great for wildlife.
I know.
Almost every single one has some kind of purpose. Some of them are obviously poisonous, some of them are medicinal, you can use them herbally. Some of them are only there because they attract specific insects.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So,
I feel like I'm being judged from every angle.
We need to get over the weed thing.
I know, and my garden will be doing a lot more for nature than my neighbours would be,
Yeah.
So,
have you seen any rats yet?
No, why would I see rats? But, like, because some of the weeds are, like, in this crack in the path, if that was a gorgeous, like, Thymus serpulum, then you'd feel differently, wouldn't you,
Yeah.
Honestly.
I think sometimes when there's like a lot of overgrowth or there's a lot of plants like that, that's what in urban environments, especially, and even on the allotment too, you get rats. That's like because they can hide under there and there's food and stuff. And I think that's one reason why in the past people have kept more clean, tidy gardens. Yeah,
at the end of the day, that's just part of nature as well. I know rats seem disgusting, but they've also got a life to live. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, just like cows and pigs and dogs and everything else.
Oh, well, yeah. What? But do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't know, like, having dense plant cover is actually easier for looking after a garden. And, of course, Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I feel a little bit like you are persuading us all to just have an abundantly buxom front garden here.
Well, I'm persuading everyone really just to, I'm persuading, I don't know, the people that would moan at the people that have got the gardens like that to just chill out. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like we shouldn't be so judgy. I'll tell you something else really that I was really surprised at yesterday, and I messaged him about it actually. Did you see on Drag Queen Gardener's stories yesterday, I think it was, he was revising for his RHS exams?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's got this, he put the page in there, and it's got like obviously the names, and you learn them, the pictures there, and it tells you how to pronounce them underneath.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell? Who says that is the correct way to pronounce it? And why, if somebody learns like echinacea and they say echinacea instead, how is that such a big deal as long as they learnt the plant name?
Yeah.
And I found that really weird and quite judgy. And I really hate, I think maybe, obviously, my partner's not English speaking. So like he's going to pronounce things in a very different way to what I would. But I'm never going to then stand there and correct him and say you should say it like this, because what's to say the right way to pronounce something? And if someone comes up to me and says something in a different way, then I'm just going to roll with it. And I don't know, it's weird. Like clematis, clematis.
Thing with the Latin names, I think for the reason of like learning them is just to give you an idea of how to even consider saying a Latin name, right? But
as long as they don't mark you on that
no, they don't mark you on the pronunciation. I've done those exams, so they don't mark you on the pronunciation. I think it's just to help you. But
I've clearly made a storm up.
I have read quite a few times that actually there has never been ever the right way to say any Latin word ever.
Really?
So there is literally no correct way to pronounce a Latin word, and that's botanical apparently as well. So there's so many different ways of saying things, and in the past I've been corrected by saying something and I've just carried on saying it my own way anyway.
Because it adds that layer of judgment, which I really hate.
Yeah. And people know what you mean. If you say, echinacea, if you say echinacea or if you say echinacea, you will both know exactly what I'm talking about. If you say coneflower in one country and coneflower in another, they will possibly be different plants. So having the botanical name is important because it does help. But how you pronounce it is completely irrelevant. So pronounce it how the hell you want.
I know. And sometimes, like some ways, like I prefer some ways to pronounce it which are different to how most people would. And I think because over the years I've spent a lot of time in Holland with Dutch people, like a lot of the ways they would pronounce the names is what kind of comes in your head first. And I tell you one that I really love, and it's probably one that makes it a lot easier actually. Well, first of all, like echinacea, they would say that instead of echinacea. But the other one would be anemone. They say anemone.
Oh, do they?
Which is so much simpler. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that one.
I actually do believe
Achillea would be Achillea.
If I think back to when I first started like learning the names, I think I did say anemone until someone else said no, it's an enemy, and I'm like, oh, okay.
So I was just like, I just hate that, like that would lead to judgment. And I know what you're saying. That helps you feel confident with saying the Latin, but it's just kind of part of the thing that I hate about horticulture sometimes, and how people also feel like you have to know the names for plants before you can even interact with them. Or
completely.
I don't know.
You don't need to know the names to interact with them whatsoever.
It's not what I stand for, Ella Mary.
I quite agree, Mr. Planky.
Oh my god. I'm literally horizontal now.
I love it. I was going to say the camera's moved around, so I feel a bit like I'm laying next to you in bed. It's really disconcerting, I've got to say.
Well, it is like 8 minutes past 10.
So, of course, it's your bedtime. You go to bed like a lot earlier than me. And not just the time difference here, but like whenever we stay together, you go to bed like a good hour or more to me, but then you're up bright and early, and I'm like,
you're just fannying about for hours.
What time do you have to get up then? What time do you have to get up then?
Oh, I don't have to go to the studio till like 9:30. So, but the thing is, I would never wake up much past. How to word that? I wouldn't wake up later than like 7:30, like naturally.
Right.
I would never still be asleep at 8 or 8:15 or 8:30, for example. No.
Oh, I would happily.
Really? But then I wouldn't see you as someone that would still be asleep at 9.
No, but also if if there's something on and I've got to get up, I will get up at whatever time I need to get up. Do you know what I mean? I'm not. I would still get up and do what I've got to do. But if I don't have an alarm, I'm probably more of a half seven to 8. But since we've had the baby, she has me up at like 3 a.m. and then 6:30.
So like half 7 to 8. That's not so awful at all.
No, 7 to 8 is pretty normal. 8 would actually be late. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds very interesting.
I have to say. We've discussed our sleeping habits.
Well, this is informal part of the episode. This is where we really just let loose, like the 90s pop band.
Tomorrow I'm going foraging.
Oh, cool. What for?
Mushrooms.
Oh, I really I want to go look for but I don't quite know where to look. I know that sounds a bit weird, but I want to go with a guide or something.
Yeah, well, Forage and Folklore, who were our contributors in the last
series, I know.
Heard of them, yeah.
But are you going on your own though, or what?
I'm going on my own, and I have a guide book, and I'm just going to go and see what I can find. Like, there's a lot of fungi here that I don't know, and I wouldn't pick if I was at all unsure, because I'm still really wary anyway, even in the UK. I don't know them all. But I just want to go and find some really cool fungi. Like here, there's just some like electric colour. I mean, I'm kind of like excited. So I've had a bit of research about some of the cool places to go, and I'm going to head on out and have a little look to see what I can find. And I'm very, very excited.
Have you made some botanical friends there, actually?
I've got a few botanical friends. Actually, one of them is a forager. And her auntie works with my husband, and she's setting us up she'd set us up to meet up and chat and everything, and she's an actual accredited forager, so she's allowed to go and take food and sell it to restaurants and stuff, which is pretty cool.
Because isn't Bree is in North Carolina, right?
Bree is in Raleigh. Bree is in Raleigh, which is a good few hours away from here, up further up the state. She actually contacted me the other day. So Bree, the plant lady, if anyone wants to look her up. And she just said next time I'm going through Raleigh or, want to head out that way to let her know.
Yeah, she's a pretty cool girl.
Yes, I will do that at some point for sure. And then there's Alison, who's known as All Eye Plant on Insta. She's really cool. We're going to go seed shopping soon in near Gastonia, which is a place just outside of the city. So yeah, I'm meeting people around and about for sure. It's cool. That's nice. It's always cool to meet other people,
Well, I was worried about you because I know you find it hard to make friends. So.
Really?
There's another guy, Preston. I think he's in North Carolina somewhere.
I think he's in Durham, which is another city in North Carolina. Yeah,
I guess in my head, I feel like North Carolina's the same size as Suffolk. So I'm like, just go there, Ellen. Go there.
Yeah, we are next Monday to Friday. We're heading out to the beach, but we're now going probably down to South Carolina. But to go along to the coast and then down is a good 4 hours. So where it's quite, it is quite a big state. It's not big as some, but the cities aren't really that close by.
Yeah, but you know what, darling? Ipswich to Norwich, that's nearly 2 hours these days.
Why?
I don't know. It's annoying. But it's more than an hour, which is, I feel like
20.
It never used to be.
It's an hour 20.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is.
Oh, Ellen.
Well, it's been lovely chatting with you, Mr. Fly and Geek.
Oh, do you know what? It's been more than lovely.
Is this sarcasm?
I don't know, but I just realised it sounds a bit creepy. And I better make my excuses.
Make your excuses and leave.
I was really squatting at the gym and my legs are like, you know, when you're walking around, like you really have, you know, yourself.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I don't know what's going on here now. But anyway.
Come on, I'm packing the room up now, so you need to go.
All right. I hope you have a wonderful sleep and a great day testing umbrellas tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
I do love when you go formal. Good night, Ellen.
That wasn't a tall formal, but good night, Michael.
Good night. I'm literally getting under the covers.
Bye.
Bye.
The music for the Plant-Based podcast is part of the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editor is Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.